Welcome to another show. Today we have Arjun Paliwal on the show. How you going, Arjun?
Hey, my friend, it's good. I'm good. Good to be on.
Good to be on. Thanks, thanks for spending some time out with us. You're on the road a lot, and it's always good to get a piece of you as Australia's number one buyer's agent.
Look,
you
I'm
know,
grateful for that title. I'll say one thing though. It's a buyer's agency, so that means it's not my effort. It's the team behind me, and I'm grateful for what the team does. And yeah, it's been special that we had that award not only for 2024 but for 2023 as well. So became the first in Aussie history to go back to back.
Yeah, that's so good. It's great that you bring that up because in the business world, particularly, sometimes you hear the term self-made man thrown around. So it's good that you recognize your team, and and I'm sure it encourages them to keep going hard as well. So yeah, so what got you into being into the buyer's agency space, and what do you, from there, what do you think, you know, helped you get to the top of your game?
Yeah, great question. So firstly, I'll take you back, what now, 6 years ago to 2018.
Yeah.
And a few months prior launching the business in 2018, a couple of thoughts will come into mind. The first was how much I had a passion for property investing, where my wife and I clearly lived and breathed it, where we were both bankers working at CBA. We had some pretty good portfolio growth ourselves across, I think it was 9 properties at that time.
Yeah,
And
nice.
from that perspective, when you live it, breathe it, you work in the profession of it, you're hearing stories all day and out. That's the first part that makes any business want to take off or do well, is there's a genuine passion for it. The
Yeah.
second part is there were some gaps. And the gaps in Australia was that property investing was basically just done because an area felt good, it looked good, or someone thought that maybe the future looked bright, but it
Yeah.
lacked meaningful data. It lacked interpretation of data. It lacked the drivers of what really grows markets. And I felt that that was missing a lot because the buyer's agents I'd used personally, the industry itself, didn't really have champions. I had people that did it, don't get me wrong, but it didn't have
Yeah.
champions that I felt were really standing out to go, we're going to help consumers make the best data driven decision and help them take their portfolio to new heights faster than what they typically could on their own. And that's where I felt that the opportunity was for me to come in, make a meaningful difference to clients, because I knew that was missing for myself when I first worked with a professional. And then when I started to figure it out for my own portfolio, I knew that was the X factor. And here we are 6 years later, as that being one of our core X factors today.
Yeah. No. So it's funny. Yeah, it's funny you say that. That you didn't see a champion. And when I've put on my Facebook, I've asked people the question. You know, should I use a buyer's agent? This sort of thing, and I have some sales agents saying, "Oh, the buyer's agents are all failed sales agents," not knowing what a buyer's agent does, of course, and yeah, things like people don't really know what it is. Another one was buyer's agents have predetermined stock that they might want to sell. And that sort of thing. And I did see that happening in the development space in Brisbane, around the edges of Brisbane. Sometimes you have investment specialists, and that sort of yeah. So that sort of brings me to my next point. Your business is called Investor Kit. So when I hear that, I'm thinking, I bet you he's a slick guy with a sweet seminar or something like that. But you don't, like, when I look at your content and what you put out there, you include, especially on social media, you include a lot. You put some personal touches in there. You're talking about your team a lot. You're talking about real stats and real figures. You're not trying to, sell a new development block or something like that. It's you really care about people, and I thought that was really, really refreshing in the investment space. Did you like? Yeah. So what do you do to set yourself apart from other investment companies, that sort of thing, to to make sure that people understand that you really care.
Yeah, so I think the first part is I appreciate you pointing that out because we do care,
Yeah.
right? And that's the biggest
Yeah.
part where if you scroll through our website, you'll notice from our client case studies through to our research, through to our insights that we give away for free. There isn't a company in this country in the buyer's agency space that puts out as much and at high depths of quality free research for people to digest, right? We release monthly white papers that are often featured in the mainstream media, that give away the core locations, what's happening across Australia, and key insights into fundamentals. Every single week, we're releasing new insights that aren't just your blogs that many businesses do to just rank a little bit better or have some SEO so they can stand out. We're doing blog posts because we want people to bust myths, re-educate themselves, figure out what's happening in key markets. And then, of course, our YouTube channel that's growing as well will put out videos, and our podcast where we have over 500,000 downloads. None of these stats are
Yeah.
to brag. They're all us giving away free information. And I think that's the first part where we just want to help Aussies, because we know that not every Aussie will work with us. We know
Yeah.
that the majority of Aussies will buy on their own, and that's okay. We're not here to help them with our professional services. We're here to help them with our genuine care. Those people that aren't working with us, we're here to help them with genuine care to say, here's the insights that'll help you get a better result. Off you go to do it. But then what
Yeah.
happens is there's a group of people that go, you know what? I'm sick of missing out. I'm sick of wasting weekends. I'm actually quite time poor. I really don't know where to start with negotiation. I don't have professional connections to buy properties off market. I don't have a clear strategy in place to actually build a plan to get me there. I don't know how to interpret the research, even though you've given me the time and how to do that. I just don't want to. I need a professional to support me. And it's those people we help with our professional services. So I think the biggest core factor in terms of that point of difference or standing out is being that what people think our core services is
Yeah.
actually what we give away for free. That's the core thing we do. And then off the back of that, a few people go, look, I have help that I need in these areas. And that's the people that we service as actual clients.
Yeah. That's really good. You've definitely thought about that. Yeah, it's so clear. It's like crystal clear. I love it. Hey, that's really refreshing. So, can you say the last bit again? So you're helping people. You're
Yeah,
helping
so
people with you. Yeah.
the real, what I always look at it is
Yeah.
that we're helping all Aussies make
Yeah.
better real estate research decisions,
Yeah.
learn more about the drivers of property markets, avoid costly mistakes. We're helping them all do that through our free research. And that's touching the lives of, over 1 million people, from the impacts of downloads, views, listens, research reports, blogs clicked on. It's crossed that mark. So that's what we want to keep amplifying. That's our internal why, right? And
Yeah.
then from there, the outcome of doing that is just that a few people go, here are the many reasons that I need help with, and I would now like a professional to support. Whereas I think some of the big factors is others go into business just to support as many clients as possible professionally, whereas
Yeah.
we go into business to help the many in Australia with better decisions. And we know off the back of that, there are going to be some people that just go, I want your support. And then that's the number they'll naturally grow each year with more Aussies that we help the other way.
Yeah. I love it. That's really good. That's really refreshing. I really, yeah. Yeah. No, it's good to see that you're doing that way. I hear now and again I hear like business coaches talk about that, but for you to actually be doing it and then be called by the RBA the number one buyer's agent, that's awesome.
No,
Yeah.
thank you.
So
Really appreciate it.
yeah,
It's been a journey, 6 years in the making, so it
six
hasn't
years.
happened overnight.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I'm glad you said it like that. So what are some of the challenges that you've faced in your property journey that you wish people knew early on?
Yeah, good point. So the
Yeah.
first thing I learned is that just because something is affordable doesn't mean it'll grow, right? Because
Yeah.
sometimes when you're living in major cities like Sydney and Melbourne, you look
Yeah.
across different parts of the country and you go, oh, that's cheap. And just because it's cheap in comparison to you doesn't mean it's going to grow. And so I learned that the hard way by buying a property in 2016, thinking that, oh my God, it can't get cheaper than this. And guess what? It
Mm.
didn't grow until 2021, 2022. So that was
Yeah.
5 years of opportunity cost sitting there just because I thought something was cheap, it would grow. There are many cheap areas that will grow, but you need all the picture to come together, which is what data-driven investing is about, not just picking a market because it's affordable. So that's probably the first part I've learned. The
Mm.
second part is your asset type makes a huge difference. So there are many people out there who go and find a great location, like a inner city, trendy, hippie, great food, great coffee, lifestyle area. Maybe the beach is there. They'll find all these things that internally tell us, I would love to live here. So why wouldn't many others? This is a great spot. Why wouldn't
Yeah.
many others think that? and then you buy in that location. But the big mistake comes up and you just buy the wrong asset type in that location. Ends up being a one bedder that's affordable, get your foot in the door in a high rise building. And there's no shortage of those, right? At the end of the day, property will grow if there's less properties available in comparison to what people buy or are wanting to buy. And if everyone can each fit into a one bedroom dwelling and everyone gets one and they don't have to compete with you, prices aren't rising in that area. And so as a result, competition is what drives it. And then learning about that the area and all the nice to haves don't drive it, that was a good learning lesson.
Yeah. So you mentioned first home buyers there. Now I've heard Ben Handler say that he imagined first home buyers would be the ones using buyers agents the most. So do you deal with first home buyers much, or first time investors for that?
It's a good question. For us, it's a really big mix. Like we get all
Yeah,
sorts. We get
yeah,
the older couples who've made a bit of wealth, but they want to just take it to new heights. We've had first timers that really want to avoid mistakes and don't want to be overwhelmed by the process, and they want to
yeah,
do it. We've had people that have given it a go and they've made some mistakes and they want to fix it up. So I think the main thing is where I see the opportunity for me to continue to help people get it right and also to avoid getting it wrong anymore always happens
yeah,
to be two areas. One is when someone's made a mistake, like something like I explained earlier, like a high rise, and then they come to us. And that's like where I'm finding that's a lot of people that come to us. They go out, give it a go on their own, they make a mistake, and then they come to us afterwards to play fixer up. So whilst that's great, we're here to help people from avoiding future mistakes. I really want people to not make a mistake first and then use us. I want people to avoid the mistake if they can, see us as their first journey to start a portfolio, and then we can get it right, not just for the first one, but ongoing.
yeah. So if they're coming to the first one, is a buyer's agent afford like is it? I mean, there's a lot of the time I think of first home buyers as people who have just saved up enough, and I know that's not always the case. But do you think it's like affordable for a first home buyer, like
I'll
using a
share a
buyer's
story.
agent?
I'll share a story with
Yeah,
you that answers that, right? So,
stories. That's what we want.
yeah, yeah. I'll take you back to 2018. There's a gentleman by the
Yeah,
name of Simon. He's a really
yeah,
good friend of mine and a client.
yeah,
He lives in Brisbane, and he had heard podcasts and heard, stuff in the media from buyers agencies and was really admiring the portfolios that people build using one. And so he thought to himself, hey, I would like to get it right and I'd like to make a great outcome here. And I want to reach out to people. Now, he didn't just reach out to us, he reached out to some other professionals too. Those other professionals felt that his budget wasn't enough and they weren't giving him the vibes or the confidence that he wanted. So as a result, they felt like, hey, because your budget's not enough, maybe not worth getting into. Now, this person is a first time investor. This
yeah,
person was not on a big income at the time. This person was not a big saver. This person did not have a large amount of savings, nor did they have any help from family, friends, guarantor, equity, anything.
yeah,
So they're all about that first time buyer trying to get it right, like you've asked and explained.
yeah,
Now, they had a budget of $280,000, right?
yeah,
And we said, no, no, we'll help you. We can help you. We bought a property in Western Brisbane that's now worth well into the late fours, early fives. And then
yeah.
we used the equity
That's
from
great.
that property to purchase another property for them in regional Queensland. And that was purchased affordably in the threes as well. And
Mm,
that's now worth close to high fours as well. So all of a
yeah,
sudden, you've got hundreds of thousands of equity generated in about 5 years of investing. And had that person waited those 5 years to save more, they would have just started investing now and probably
yeah,
would have been priced out from their budget. So what that clearly shows is a first-time investor who did not have the resources or the funds that were really comfortable to make a buyer's agent decision. They
yeah,
squeezed in every last dollar to make it work, and look at the outcome that produced for them. They just really valued how comfortable they were. They really valued how, they didn't have to have the stress and pressures as well. So those things, sometimes people can't put a price on that. It's just their internal worries they don't want. So that's a
yeah,
story there of someone where first time investor comes in. Now, if
yeah,
you
yeah.
measure it
That's great.
differently, if you measure it differently and use metrics, this is where it won't look affordable. If you measure it as a dollar value cost, it's not cheap. If
Yeah.
you measure it as a percentage of your property value, it's not cheap. If you measure it against the time, if you have time, if you measure it against the skill sets, if you've got skills, if you measure it against the access to off markets, if you've got them, the threshold of value starts reducing when you've got the things that we're prioritizing and providing. So that's where it's not about whether it's cheap or expensive. It's about what's it worth to you. And if that worth to you metric is quite high, then naturally it looks like the cheapest thing ever. If that metric of worth to you isn't high, we aren't going to be a fit to support or work with you. And maybe you don't need one, and that's totally okay. So that's the key thing I've come to learn on the journey.
Yeah. So, what's it worth to you? So, are you saying? I don't think there's a better like. If you know that you need to invest in something, and obviously property is going to come into it, is it what are you going to do? What's it worth to you? What are you going to do if we help? If we know that we can help you, how are you going to move to make that happen? Or I in my personal life I often use the word sacrifice. If you have goals, you're going to have sacrifice. That sort of thing. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, a little bit. It's more like just
Yeah.
value identification. It's more like,
Yeah.
if someone has 6 out of the 8 things that I
Yeah.
provide,
Yeah.
right, then it's not worth it to them. And that's totally
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
If someone doesn't have them and only has 2 or 3 things of the 8 or 9 things I provide, it's more worth it to them. So I just feel like
Yeah.
when you look at those issues of time, research, strategy, negotiation, planning a portfolio,
Yeah.
and all of these things, you score 5 out of 5 for all of them,
Yeah.
you don't need a professional on your side. If you don't, this is where we come in.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. So, yeah, you're helping people with their journey, and I think that's a really good buyer's agent should do, and maybe that's why some sales agents that I've talked to don't understand what we do or how we do it,
Yeah, I think on that point, like they're probably thinking the linkage to the transaction.
Yeah.
And they've seen so many people do that transaction without someone helping
Yeah.
them that they wonder why. And that's a fair point, right? It's a fair point
Yeah.
because if so many people do it without one, why? Well, the thing is, they only see point of transaction. They don't
Yeah.
see the budget setting. They don't see the strategy creation. They don't see the due diligence because remember, every sales agent thinks their property is the greatest, where some buyers will not like some of them and some buyers will like others. Now, due
Yeah.
diligence is what got them to that, right? Researching. Maybe they thought that, yeah, every buyer could just find this market, but if every buyer found that market, then everyone would be there. They don't. And so what
Yeah.
ends up happening is that, you know, they only know the point of transaction, which is someone just fighting with me on a price and doing it, and hopefully everything goes through from there. The thing is, there's so much that doesn't happen: strategy, access to stock, research, due diligence, pricing analysis. All of this stuff is the before they get there, and people aren't as strong as you think on that. And there are many people that want help with that, and therefore that's when buyers agents do come of value. And it's okay if sales agents don't recognize that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's definitely there's definitely so like I like how you have a database approach to making decisions about your future. I think that's important, I'll just note that you're coming off the screen a little bit there, and I will
Oh,
cut that.
sorry.
That's all right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So, like I said off camera before, this is mostly for the Brisbane market. The Brisbane listeners are, for Brisbane property talk. So, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts around Brisbane? What's been coming across your desk data wise? Is there anything you can share there?
Of course. So, look,
Yeah.
Brisbane's got a lot of heat still in the market.
Yeah.
Things are flying off pretty quickly. I think the key thing to recognize, and this just isn't a Brisbane thing, it's common across many capital cities, is
Yeah.
we expect Brisbane's affordable regions to continue their strong strength over the next year or two. But at
Yeah.
some point, based on the rate of growth with affordable markets, which has been much higher than some of the higher end markets, they will close the gap to each other. And as they close the gap to each other, and as interest rates start reducing in the cycles ahead, then you'll start to see the return of those upper priced and higher priced markets beyond what the growth rates have been in the lower price markets. I just think that right now the lower price markets are leading the way, especially in Brisbane. But then when the
Yeah.
cycle starts to shift and people start to go, hold on a minute, I can upsize now, right? Hold on a minute, I can afford that mortgage. I can borrow more. All these fundamentals that they didn't think, and just the common human value. Wow, I have to pay that much to be out there. I don't have to pay that much more to be up here. And so I think these two things
Yeah.
will change, and people in Brisbane will start to pick up more of those higher priced properties in the future, in the medium term. But in the short term, those affordable regions out west, out south, far north, they just keep on keeping on. And that seems to be the clear theme in Brisbane.
Yeah, yeah, we're definitely seeing that in auctions and inspections that I'm going to at the moment, looking for property. And how do you feel about internal migration? It seems to be talked about a lot. What's your take on that? Do you
Yeah. It's a helpful data set. Look, it's helpful because,
yeah,
people moving to an area at higher rates doesn't hurt anyone in terms of
yeah,
the house price movements, right? However, it isn't strong enough in isolation to be a big driver. The biggest growth
yeah,
rate
okay.
doesn't come from a few thousand people coming in from other cities. The biggest
Yeah,
growth rates come from those within the city. How is their job markets changing for them? How is their affordability shifting for them? How is their desires to be able to get into the market shifting for them? All of those things are the bigger drivers. The interstate movements, the money coming in from interstate as well, that's a driver as well that keeps the cycle going as well, because you've now got both sides competing with each other to lift it. But the biggest money shakers and the biggest money movers sit with the money within that just
mm,
decides to act. Because remember, investors make up a portion between 25 to 40% of transactions, depending on the market you pick. And relocations are in the few thousands of people or tens of thousands, not in the hundreds of thousands that exist in Brisbane. The biggest
yeah,
drivers will always be the people that transact who locally live there and are buying
yeah,
property for owner occupier purpose.
yeah. I love it. That's really good. Yeah. No, I like. Yeah. Okay. The we'll definitely have to take a look at that. The that's a really good piece of information, and it's great hearing it from you. I think the closest bit of data that I've come across that has been like that has talked about that is people usually buy where they're like much more likely to buy near where they live, that sort of thing. Yeah, so it's good. Yeah, I'll definitely be talking to you again about that. So just to wrap it up, because we like to keep it short. So, what resources or tips would you give to people that are looking to buy in Brisbane at the moment or buy soon?
Okay, cool. So
Yeah,
I would say, firstly, if you're looking at a healthy budget in mind and you
yeah,
have something up to the 1 million or 1.2 million in budget, then you definitely want to go to the areas that have seen the least growth in that budget in recent times. Because that budget going from like sort of 900K to the 1.5 mil, that hasn't grown as much as the affordable budgets of 4 to 700K in Brisbane in recent times. And
yeah,
so what I would say is that like if you're touching into those markets, probably have an opportunity to buy there whilst the lower end is catching up and interest rates haven't quite dropped yet and the cycle hasn't shifted to the higher price market and upsizes haven't gone, gun ho and crazy. So I think that could be a pretty good opportunity in Brisbane to get into, just because I think
yeah,
those markets haven't been pumping it in very recent times. The second thing is if you're looking at, moments of slowing down and when that might be coming up in Brisbane, have a look at things that are like established listing data. And if you just want a
yeah,
free resource people can have so they don't have to wait or pay or anything like that, SQM Research gives you data on listings. And it's
yeah,
clear when you look at 2022 Brisbane, where listings surged with a little bit of a bump and then came
yeah,
back down again. But that bump up was also the correlation with a slower period of price growth in Brisbane. So if you can find some bumping up areas of supply in Brisbane's established houses, then that might help you with your negotiation in some of those markets too.
yeah. That's gold. That's really good. Yeah, yeah. All right. That's yeah.
Awesome.
So we'll have to have a look at SQM. That's fantastic. So if people want to get a bit more information from you, what's the best way to find you? I'll reach out to you.
Yeah, I'd say investorkit.com.au, and that can be a great way to
Investorkit.com.au.
learn more about us. I would encourage you to tick the property research tab. If you can just check that tab out, there is a load of free research papers there. One on Australia's housing fundamentals, overvalued and undervalued markets, the rental crisis and how we're in that, how do we get out of that. Everything like that is free research available. And they're not just a one-pager or a brief couple of block points. They are in-depth research papers prepared by a data scientist, a senior research analyst, myself, the head of research, and also a
Yeah.
research analyst in our team. So 4 people going into putting all that together. And yeah, it's been special to release those. They're totally free to download. So check them out.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, all right. That's fantastic. And look, we'd love to have you come and speak in person one day at Brisbane at a Brisbane property talk as well. But I won't hold you to that until we get off
Let's
camera.
do it. Yeah, we'll do it another
Yeah.
time in Brisbane when I'm up there next.
Yeah, we'll yeah, we'll hound you when you're up here. All right. Well, thanks for being on the show. I really appreciate your time and the depth of knowledge that you have in the Australian market. It's a large place. It's incredible, and I always love watching your reels and your content you bring out online. It's invaluable in today's market. So thank you, Arjun, and
Thank you so
I really
much.
appreciate it.
Awesome. See you later.